I'm from a little town in northwestern Minnesota called Thief River Falls. They make Arctic Cat snowmobiles there, and that's about it. After graduating from high school in 1961, I went to college. And after 2 years of college, I ran out of money and came back home. Realizing that there wasn't many opportunities for me in my hometown, I decided to join the service. And I checked out the Army, and they slept in tents. And the Navy wanted to put me in combat in the Seabees, which was a combat unit, engineering unit. And I found out that they went into combat early whenever there was trouble, so I decided I'd go in the Air Force. After visiting Grand Forks Air Force Base, those guys had it named 2 guys to a room, air conditioning, TV. So I enlisted in the Air Force in 1963, and I was going to become a photographer. Unbeknownst to me, I took a test during basic training that made me qualified for foreign languages. It said I had an aptitude for languages, which was kind of a surprise because I damn near failed high school Spanish. My basic training was in Lackland Air Force Base, Texas in 1963. And about the only thing I can remember about boot camp is that everybody hollered at you. If you did something good, you got hollered at. If you did something bad, you got hollered at. So you just kind of try to stay out of the way. When I graduated from boot camp, which was in October of '63, I was supposed to go to Andrews Air Force Base to be a photographer. And instead I was held back, and I got orders to go to Monterey, California, to the Defense Language Institute to take Arabic. Now, in 1963, I didn't know much about the world, so Monterey was a million miles away. Arabic was something I'd never even dreamed of learning. I spent a year in Monterey doing nothing but speaking, reading, and writing Arabic, and when I left, I even dreamt in Arabic. We weren't allowed to speak any English in class, so there was 8 of us in class, 8 Air Force guys. We were the first 8 in Monterey. And when we graduated, we were sent to Fort Meade, Maryland for some further training. I'll tell you that my occupational title, or my MOS, Military Occupational Specialty, was Airborne Voice Intercept Operator and Interpreter. And that's about as deep into my actual career I really want to go. From there, I went to Texas for some further training, and all the guys in my class, except me, got sent overseas to Greece, and I stayed in Goodfellow Air Force Base, Texas. That's what happens when your last name is Wood. All the rest of the guys got to go first. Two years of playing in the sandbox in Texas, and I got tired of it. They asked for volunteers for Vietnamese language. This was in '66. So I went off to Fort Meade, Maryland again, and took Vietnamese for a year and a half. And then I went to survival school. They sent me up in the mountains in Portland, Oregon, in 8 foot of snow in December to learn how to survive in the jungle. Go figure. That's the Air Force. And I arrived in my duty assignment in December of '67, Okinawa, Japan. And in 1968, I was flying in Southeast Asia on reconnaissance aircraft. I spent January and February of '68 actually at Da Nang Air Force Base during the Tet Offensive, which got kind of exciting. I spent most of my time in an underground bunker or in an airplane flying around. If anybody asked me what I did in the service, I'd have to say, well, I flew in circles, because I took off from one place and I landed the same place 12 hours later. I spent 5 years in Southeast Asia, and as the result of that, I received, I was a participant in a unit award who had received 4 outstanding unit awards with Oak Leaf Clusters. In the 5 years I was there, I received 10 combat stars on my ribbons. I received the Vietnam Service Medal. I've got a few that I can read here. Let's see. I received the Air Medal with 14 clusters, which accounted to about close to 300 combat missions. I'm lying. No, that's right, 300 combat missions, about 5,000 hours flying. And Outstanding Unit Award, of course, I mentioned. And then, of course, all the good conduct and all the rest of that, longevity. Most of this stuff is just extra hash, but I'm very proud of the Air Medal, which is only given to a very few people. And I received that with 14 Oak Leaf Clusters. I was also awarded a Combat Crew Member Badge. As I said, all my flying time was about 5,000 hours, and it was all credited as combat hours. After spending 5 years overseas, I tried numerous times to get back to the States and couldn't make it, so I got out of the service, took a year break and came back in, and they wanted to send me back to do the same thing, or I could take this terrible job fixing radars. I went to radar repair school for a year, and then was sent to Fort Drum, New York. When I arrived here at Fort Drum, there was 100 Air Force and 36 Army. The place was called Camp Drum. There was no livable quarters on post, so we were given quarters allowance and allowed to live downtown. Now, a single man getting his own apartment and an allowance was like letting loose the wolves. I had a good time. I met my wife here. I married my wife, Brenda. I've been married 40 years. I've been here about 2-3 years, and I got orders to go back to Monterey, California, to take intermediate Vietnamese. I took intermediate Vietnamese, and then ended up in 1980 back in Okinawa, Japan, where I flew reconnaissance missions again out of Okinawa this time. They weren't considered combat missions, but I logged about 100 of them in 3 years. I was in charge of the ground processing system there. I separated from the service in 1985, and since then I've done numerous things. As far as my military, I guess some of the funniest things that I can remember that happened, and it may not sound funny to some of you, but we were on a typhoon evacuation, which meant that there was a typhoon in Okinawa. We took all our airplanes to the Philippines and all our crew members, and we flew combat missions out of there. We were also in support of Southeast Asia at the time, This was back during the Vietnam era. And in our free time, we didn't have anything to do. So we'd fly a day and we'd have 2 days off. Well, beer was 10 cents a bottle. So you can imagine a bunch of guys in the Philippines drinking beer. We got an emergency call one afternoon for a Chinese linguist that was needed in Southeast Asia. And he was needed there ASAP. Well, there wasn't any of us that were very sober at the time, including a Chinese linguist that was with us. So we put a label, a tag on his flight suit that said, "Wake me at Da Nang," and took him out to the airplane and sent him on his way. Needless to say, I don't think Steve has talked to me since then, because he ended up coming out of his nap at Da Nang Air Force Base when he thought he was going to be in Clark in the Philippines. The most exciting time I had was being under attack by fighter aircraft from various other countries, most notably North Vietnam, and also on one occasion China. I'm here, so we come out on the good end of that.